We're live. Good evening. Welcome to the Planning and Economic Development Committee meeting of July 19th. First order of business is the approval of the minutes from June 21st. Do I hear a motion? Motion?
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Privilege of the floor. Is there anybody here from the floor? I don't see anybody. So we'll move along. Okay, our first resolution is to confirm appointments to the Chautauqua County Land Bank Board of Directors. I hear footsteps. All right. And if you, again, can just announce your name and your position.
James Feldman from the County Executive's Office.
All right. Thanks for being here.
No problem. So on this resolution, we have two new appointments, Shelley Lincoln and Todd Natishan, and they will be replacing Nicole May and Taylor Scott, who were reappointed this past winter but had to resign earlier this year. Both of these potential members came recommended by Gina Paradis, the Executive Director of the Land Bank.
Any questions? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
No problem.
Let's have it. Our second resolution of the evening is let's see, Dave. We'll wait for Dave to come down. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, distinguished committee members.
So
My name is Dave McCoy. I'm the Chautauqua County Watershed Coordinator, and I work within the Department of Planning and Economic Development.
So the second resolution is the authorized use of Lake Erie Management Commission Capital Project H 8020.37011 funds for additional dredging in the Barcelona Harbor. Can you enlighten us?
As you may know, Barcelona Harbor was recently dredged by the Army Corps of Engineers. However, they don't dredge beyond the boundaries of the federal channel. Town of Westfield has in the past and this year has requested dredging outside of that channel to facilitate public use and access of their facilities on the lake. They were able to secure the dredging contractor to stay around for an extra day. This resolution helps to fund that.
Great. And the harbor at one point was not even passable, right?
Not really.
Yeah.
You know, if you had a rowboat, yeah. If you had a much bigger, probably not.
Okay. So this will help. This will help beyond the federal channel, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. You know, Barcelona Harbor has more economic impact than a lot of people realize. If you've ever been up there when one of the major fishing tournaments is going on, you'll see 100 boats and trailers and trucks parked there, stretching right down the highway. The parking lot's full, and those guys are all buying food, gas, and paying tournament fees and other things like that. So it behooves us to try to keep that marina and harbor as functional as possible.
And from what we heard the other day at our Lake Erie Management Commission meeting, that the town of Westfield paid for some additional docking or something right near the pier there. Is that what it was?
That's just the city of Dunkirk.
Okay.
We have a little bit of money left over in that capital account. However, we were unable to get that resolution in time for the pre-file deadline, so we will do it in August.
Okay. But I thought that the town supervisor had mentioned that they had done some additional town funding because the harbor was going so well.
Well, they have used internal funding.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I mean. Yep. Okay. I'm sorry. I don't mean to. Any questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Dave, this work is already completed, correct?
I'm sorry?
The dredging, this additional dredging, 1 day dredging is completed?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah, we struggle sometimes to get through the approval process before
Dave,
actual work is done.
sure, you know so much about that breakwall in Barcelona, the barrier there. Does the Army Corps of Engineers think about doing anything differently with the design of that?
You know, there are plans to do some additional work up there. You know, the breakwaters, particularly on the west side, are inadequate for current weather conditions that we've been experiencing. And the Army Corps' project approval process stretches out a number of years. So this project was actually envisioned and funding was earmarked for it probably 3 years ago. And conditions have deteriorated significantly since then. They didn't have enough money to come in and get it all. Hope is that we can continue to advocate and perhaps get it next year or the year after. And to make those breakwater improvements, because I think it's everybody's best interest to stretch out our maintenance intervals, you know, as opposed to doing it every year or every 2 years, so we can get back maybe 5 years, which is more in line with what the federal appropriation process would support.
Thank you.
Anybody else? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, David. Our next one. Sure. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening, Nate Aldrich, Economic Development Coordinator, Department of Planning and Development.
Andrew Nixon, Chautauqua County Visitors Bureau.
Yeah, great. So third on our agenda tonight is the authorized Chautauqua County Visitors Bureau as the local tourist promotion agency for matching funds program sponsored by the New York State Division of Tourism. And the likeness.
So I'll hand this over to Andrew in just a second here. I just wanted to point out, this is an annual resolution you see just about this time every year, allowing Andrew to apply for New York State matching funds through CCVB. I just wanted to mention that the funding does not come through the county. He just needs the county's authorization in order to apply through CCVB.
Yeah, thank you. Part of the application process every year is to have a local authorization resolution that says that we're the official TPA for the county and that we're allowed to apply for the funding. We'll apply probably in September. We'll find out whether we get the funding maybe in November, early December. I put some materials in front of you that just explain how the grant will be used. There's a interesting connection between how much you apply for and how much you get. And they use a formula, and that's actually the third page. It's a convoluted formula. It doesn't make any sense, but it's what they use. And so every county that applies is encouraged to apply for the maximum, which we estimate to be $172,500. And you run it all through the formula, and it gives you $44,891 and $1,606 for regional programs. And for a total grant of, if I can see that right, $46,497. So that's the reason why the resolution says allow us to apply for up to a certain number, and we put 250,000 in there, which is more than we need to cover that 172 maximum application amount. I just bring that up because there's been questions about it before. It doesn't encumber the county or even us for any more funding. No matter what, the maximum is the maximum, the formula is the formula, and it spits out the amount that's shown on the formula, give or take a few dollars from this total. The first page then is just how we would spend the money. We would take the 44,891, match it locally using our budget, and apply all of that toward the production of the Chautauqua County Travel Guide. And the reason we specify that is it goes into the application that we turn in. We take the 1,606, match it locally, and then combine like amounts with Cattaraugus and Allegheny counties and use that to pay for consumer travel shows like the Cleveland Boat Show, Pittsburgh AAA RV, Travel Show, Erie RV Show, and the Western New York Outdoor Travel Show are the four that we pay for.
Nice.
So that's That's the reason for the authorization and how we intend to utilize the funds.
Do you usually get the 46 or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, we get what the formula spits out.
Right.
It's all sort of predetermined. It's a strange and, a formula going back 30, 35 years. They just have never changed it. And,
But you automatically get it, basically, the full amount that you can get.
yes, yeah, we apply for the maximum and then the formula prorates it all down because basically every county is applying for 1/20th or 5% of the maximum available, but there's 60 counties, I think, or 62 counties in the state. So that's why it all gets prorated.
Anybody got any questions? I have one question, maybe just a little. Can you tell us a little bit of how the tourism season's going so far this season? I know we're early, but.
Yeah, it seems to be pretty good. I was in a meeting the other day with Kitty Crow, and she talked about how occupancy tax is doing fairly well this year, sort of on par with the past couple of years, which is good. When we looked at taxable lodging sales for chain hotels, like January through May or through April, it seemed down a bit, but that was really just 11 or 12 hotels that participate in a national survey through a research firm. But now that we're through the end of June, we have a report for June. It's actually up. Occupancy's up at those properties, and revenue is way up. So they're charging more per night, and occupancy's up a little, revenue's up a pretty decent amount. And so that now we're in July and August, and those are usually about 50% of the year's revenue comes in July and August, with 80% coming in like May through October. So it seems like we're on track to do fairly well.
Anybody else? All right. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you very much, Sean.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew.
You bet.
Okay, we're on our fourth resolution, calling for a public hearing regarding the implementation of a community development block grant funded micro enterprise assistance program.
So some of you may recall approximately 2 years ago, our department collaborated with Chautauqua Opportunities for Development to apply for a $200,000 in CDBG funding through the Office of Community Renewal to establish a micro enterprise assistance program. The way that program works, since it's CDBG dollars, it can go anywhere in the county besides the 2 cities, since they're entitlement cities. That funding is sort of seeded a program to provide forgivable loan funding to small businesses or startups in the other 40 municipalities for working capital, fixtures, furniture, equipment, other capital needs to grow their business. So a new requirement within the last couple of years from the federal government is to have a second public hearing. As you may recall, last month we authorized a public hearing for the Westfield Made application. Not only is that required on the front end, it's now required on the back end at project completion. So just last week, the term of our grant came up. We have one more draw to fully expend that $200,000. And this sets the public hearing in August so we can close that grant out. So I touched base with Cody this week, and we're just compiling the final program information, and we'll send a communication to the legislature and or have Olivia read a brief script at the beginning of that public hearing in August, just to summarize the number of businesses supported, their location, the type of expenditures, job creation, et cetera.
And does the 200,000 that goes to the Cody board, and they run their programs through this?
Yeah, so the way it works, it's really on a reimbursement basis. So our department facilitates all the draw requests, and the funding goes from the federal government to New York State to the county, and then to Cody, and then to the businesses. So
Cody is I always call it a second board of Chautauqua Opportunities.
yes,
It's made up of trying to assist cottage industries and small business startups. And they also run programming, right, for it?
yes. So In the grand scheme of things, to be honest, $200,000 isn't a lot of money. However, it is a good tool, and we've been able to support 9 businesses with forgivable loans, basically grant funding that ranges from $15,000 to $35,000. And again, it's another tool in our toolbox to assist those businesses and startups.
Great.
And I should mention, we also plan on applying for more funding later this summer to keep that program going.
Oh, great. Anybody? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. Oh, did you? I don't think you have. On our discussion, Kitty Crow will give us all kinds of knowledge about the new reorganization of the finance department.
All to be done within 7 minutes. Right?
Where'd you get that from? No, take as much time as you can.
No. I can talk fast and Jamie can tell me what I missed from the last presentation. She already sat through it, so be here too. All right, so you may or may not have heard, we started a project about a year ago to look at restructuring the fiscal group. Right now we have our core finance department that handles our accounts payable, accounts receivable, auditing invoices, payroll, cash management, workers' comp, our general liability program. And each department has the responsibility for submitting invoices that come to them for their vendors, preparing their budgets, year-end accruals and things like that. And what we're looking to do for a variety of reasons is bring the oversight of those people doing fiscal work in the, departments under one umbrella of the finance department. And I'll kind of go through our list here of goals and concerns that kind of led to us looking at this to begin with, and where we are as of now, and looking ahead, what we plan to do. So from the perspective in the finance department, we have people of a variety of levels, dealing with fiscal matters in each department. And so a lot of times, as somebody kind of phrased, our department, the finance department, is the cleanup department because of kind of things, aren't handled properly. We're the ones that have to end up correcting things or retraining somebody or figuring out where there's an error that needs to be corrected. So in that we see, we see inconsistencies in the performance of some duties. We also, another area of big concern is there's not a clear promotional track for people in fiscal jobs because they're scattered across the county in different departments. And so when it comes up for promotional opportunities, say from, there's an opportunity in social services department, and then there's a complication that somebody in another department isn't really in line to apply for that promotion because they're coming from another department. That's one hiccup. And we have a lot of people at the mid and entry level, and then we have a lot of senior people, but there's not really a lot of people in the middle. And we want to address that and have a more clear promotional track and succession planning. In some cases, we are using, more for some of the mid or entry level positions. We might have a resource assistant here and an account clerk here. Well, They kind of do the same things sometimes, and we want to look at, are they in the right title, so that when a promotional opportunity does come up, if they're a resource assistant, that's one track. Account clerk, senior account clerk, principal account clerk, that's a different track. So they might not have a direct option to promote, even though they're doing similar tasks. So we want to take a look at that. And then, especially during COVID, but this does come up, regularly. We might have somebody go out on like Todd this year, unexpected medical leave. Or a planned medical leave in some cases, or somebody just takes a promotional opportunity somewhere, or they go somewhere else, retire, and then we're left with a gap and no one to kind of fill in, or has already been cross-trained, because again, we're not going to pull somebody over from DPF to go help out in social services fiscal unit. So we really want to look at building up that cross-training and depth in the organization. We also have the smaller departments struggle sometimes where the person that's assigned to handle budget and invoices and things like that, that's not their core competency, or it's not really their main duty. They might handle those things a few times a year, often kind of forget, how do I do this next time, that, doing the budget once a year, year-end stuff once a year. And so then people in our department, budget director, Todd, any number of us, we are spending a lot of time kind of retraining people on the same things. And so we, again, want to develop that core competency in a fiscal unit. And have, people that have a fiscal background supervising people that are doing fiscal tasks. So it's department heads themselves don't always have the guidance to give to their own employees when it comes to fiscal matters, because again, their expertise is on something else. So we put together a work group. We've been meeting over, a good year, and we've came to the point where we had a plan in place. The county executive was, in favor of the model that we came up with. We've been meeting with department heads, from time to time, just to give them general updates. But a couple months ago now, we had a department head meeting, had the full plan here that we're showing you as well now. And then we had a meeting with all the employees that are currently in fiscal roles. So we had that meeting here, full room. So just to kind of get the word out and just start communicating where we want to go. So what we've come up with, this is just kind of the high level of the finance department in the new structure. So that second division there is what will be new. We're calling it the Department of Fiscal Management. The other blocks across the top, those are already the existing functions within the finance department. So just to expand on this new fiscal management division, we're trying to be mindful that the department heads will still have their go-to person, but also drive consistency, reviewing policy, procedure, updating those documents, making sure they're being followed. Staff development will be a big role of the person leading this organization. So that position, Director of Administration, was the previous title of Val Lisp before she retired. And we were able to, we reviewed that job duties statement, and it fit the role that we want this person to play. It'll just be, covering more departments, so to speak. We do have somebody who's starting in this position next week, so that's good news for me. But I think he'll be a good fit for the county. He's a younger person with a family, and excited to come to work for the county. So it was very encouraging to find somebody that I think will be good for succession planning as well. So then we grouped each of these subdivisions now to align with the legislative committee. So the lead in each of these subdivisions would be focused on a set of departments that are aligned with the legislative committee. So PED, because it's really only one department, they're grouped in under the first subdivision there. So it's administrative services and planning and economic development. And then we have human services. So all the departments that report up to the human services committee, their fiscal work would be managed by human services fiscal team. So we, and again, just to emphasize, focus on the department heads still having their go-to, point person, legislative committees having a go-to person as well. And then there'll be, depending on each of these groups, they'll be different in size. Human services will probably be the largest because they have some big established fiscal units right now. They do mental hygiene, does insurance billing, social services, as you can imagine, a lot of transactions going through that department. Health department, again, does billing. And then, but like public facilities, they have established fiscal unit and people full-time fiscal. So they'll just be grouped together and be able to kind of cross-train more. And public safety, I will say there, with the sheriff being an elected official, that department will be handled a little differently, and we'll do more of a dotted line reporting from their fiscal unit into this division for the fiscal direction, and operating procedures and that sort of thing. But we recognize there's some differences when it comes to elected officials. Additionally, under public facilities with the sewer districts, and they have boards, so their boards will may likely have to take action at a board meeting just to say okay, or maybe we structure it as an agreement of service type of thing. So a few things still to iron out, but the boxes below represent the categories of work that will be performed. So primarily, they'll still help the department head develop their budget, get their budget entered in the budget module. Anything that they currently do in that respect, they'll still be making sure all the invoices get paid and processed timely. I didn't mention this at some of the other meetings, but one area that we're going to focus on with regard to invoice processing is that right now invoices get mailed all over the county. And sometimes somebody's out on vacation. What is that invoice sits there? So we are going to establish at some point a central, some vendors do send them electronically. So we'll establish an email address where you can send your invoice electronically, or just one address that all invoices will come to, and we'll have a process to scan and distribute them to the correct people in these subdivisions. So we hope that will, improve payment processing time, but also especially at year end when we're trying to do accruals, there's not like a backlog of invoices that we're trying to get in at the last minute and that sort of thing. So just as an example. Down the road, probably a next phase of this will be really to look at some of the billing that we do for the county, especially in the area of insurance billing. It's very complicated. We have fly car now and ambulance billing. We have mental health clinics, public health, but we also some of the less complex, but still the level of effort is there in terms of sewer billing, landfill customer billing. And so we, think at some point we want to just take a look at, what type of software are we going to use? Are we going to kind of try and centralize, or not centralize, but, bring in some new tools or outsource? I mean, that's really the two choices, or some combination. Where does it make sense to continue to use a contractor for that specific billing, or would it make sense to develop a core competency, within the county workforce to do some of that sort of billing? One big question that's kind of come around is, where's everyone going to sit? And it seems to be the number one employee question. And, there's really not going to be an impact, for the foreseeable future. For the most part, most of the fiscal positions already reside in Mayville, between, up the hill and this building and HRC. And the sheriff's office. The outliers are the sewer districts and DPF. They have, their fiscal people maybe over at CARTS or the Faulkner office. But, at some point we do want to, foster a sense of a team. So, we may want to try and co-locate some people, maybe more, a bigger group in HRC, or, but that's kind of the least of my concerns of this. If people will be where they are for now, and we'll just try to have more team meetings and that sort of thing to foster that team approach. So that is basically the structure that we're looking at, and we do feel it achieves some the goals, and we feel that it will achieve the goals, I should say, once implemented. So I'll talk in the last couple of minutes here just about the process that we go through to transfer the positions. Before I talk about this, I'll add, through this process, the intent is not to downsize the workforce or increase it. It's really meant to transfer the responsibility under finance and the supervision of those employees. Sure, through attrition, maybe, we recognize that, something can be absorbed. We'll look at that when it comes up, but the intent is not to, have layoffs or anything like that. So, all right. So the transfer function process, it's a, civil service process. And so what happens is that it starts with the county executive making an order that, ABC fiscal duties will be performed by the Department of Finance. Then the department heads will be tasked with identifying who in their department performs those duties. Some cases, 100%, all their duties really clear, that person's going to transfer. Some cases, somebody might be split, 80-20. So they'll be identified to transfer, but the department will have to reassign those remaining duties. The best example really is time and attendance. So a lot of the timekeepers also do fiscal duties. But timekeeping, we look at as a supervisory function. It's like that just because you're a finance person doesn't know that you're not approving the hours for the employees of that department. So that's not a task that would be part of finance. There's some exceptions just in a transitionary period. And then, requisitions and purchasing, my battery died. Sorry. But I'm going to send this presentation out to you after anyway. So the executive makes the order, the department heads come up with their list, and that list is posted. At the same time, HR will issue a notice to each of the employees individually, telling them about what their rights are in the process. One would be just to accept the transfer. If they decline the transfer, and we did go over this in the meeting with the employees, if there's not another position for them to move into in their department, it would result in a layoff. Hopefully that won't occur. Hopefully everyone will, be agreeable to the process, and, we'll work through any concerns that anybody might have. But if it did result, they just don't want to do it, and it could result in a layoff, in which case they would be put on a preferred list if another opening came up. But I'm very hopeful that doesn't happen. Hopefully we'll address everyone's concerns enough that it won't be an issue. But additionally, if somebody's not on the list and they say, oh, I do all those things, I should be transferring, they also have a right to petition that they should be included in the transfer. So we had hoped to have that order out by June, but we're already delayed due to a couple things. So one main thing is Ken Westfall. If you haven't heard, he's announced his retirement in September. And because this process involves, a lot of work on HR, I want to time it out so when they're ready for it, when we start the ball rolling. And so we'll probably phase it out in a little bit, like maybe do one group of departments first and then the next group and the next group, so that we don't kind of create a bottleneck in HR. Also with a lot of other fiscal moves and vacancies, and now the budget has started, we're just trying to, focus on getting the budget prepared right now. So hoping to get back on track to get the order out and move forward, late August, beginning of September, and try and get through all the iterations by the first quarter. So, trying to think if there's anything I forgot.
Covered a lot. Yeah, did very well. Any questions? Anybody?
Just have one question, Katie.
Mhm.
The number of employees in your department, does anyone still work remotely, or is this something that?
Oh, yeah, we have a few, almost everyone. A lot of people in my department have they're approved for occasional telework, which just means like if they have a doctor's appointment, they might, work from home after or before the doctor's appointment sort of thing. I have 2 people that have a regular telework schedule where they work, a couple days a week from home. But but I have a lot of new people, so they're not even eligible to, be approved for telework yet, because you have to be here 6 months and be past your probationary period.
So
But
the reorg affect that at all? For some
Uh,
employees who are remote?
no, I don't. I mean, uh, by nature, in my opinion, I know some people, a lot of fiscal work by nature can be done from wherever. But at the same time, I want to, foster a sense of, team. And so we'll just have to balance that. But I don't think that it's going to dramatically, this change won't dramatically change how many people are teleworking or not. So.
What's like the temperature of this with the employees at this point? I'm kind of curious about that.
Well, change is hard, and I have managed through, not something like this organizationally, but other process changes. So I'm familiar with it, how it goes. We did have a few people respond after the meeting, with some concerns, and we're trying to address them. In the presentation, you'll see when I send it, there's the last several pages are just FAQ. So we prepared some in advance and to talk about right at the meeting, like where am I going to sit? But then there were questions during the meeting, so we added more clarification on those questions. I think there's been some positive. I think for the most part, the dust is settled. It was kind of like this big announcement, and people are, waiting and, what's happening. And, so I think now that it's being talked about a little bit more, that unknown is starting to, go away. But some of the bigger concerns were about maybe seniority after everyone moves in, and then there becomes a promotional opportunity. How does seniority factor into that? Also, if we're looking at reevaluating titles, like from my perspective, going into the meeting, I was like, this should be a positive for people. They might get elevated to a different title, but some people's concern was, well, does that mean I have to take another civil service exam? So I thought, okay, that I hadn't really thought, from that perspective. So there was some good Q&A just to help me kind of think about how we'll address those situations. But, I'm not looking to make people change to titles. I would look at it more for the opportunity to them, so that they feel equal to their coworkers, and no one's, doing one job in one title and the same job in another title if there's a difference in.
One more question.
Yep.
Now, with reorg, and you'll be taking people and moving them around, some moving up, some lateral, different positions, what they're doing. Will there be any more money requested?
So
For-
the way the transfer will work is they will transfer in their current title. Okay. So, and then we'll look at in that one chart where it shows the head of each of those subdivisions, that would be a new, might not be a new title to the county. I'm still working with HR, what would be the appropriate title to use there. But that person would still do some of the work within the division. So I'm not looking at adding positions, but maybe reevaluate like how many of each title that we have, that sort of thing. So that there's a little bit more levels of responsibility. Because right now we have people here and people here, but not a lot of people, gaining that middle experience. But my I'm mindful that I want to try and do these iterations so it's at least budget neutral. So that's my goal. I mean, I'll be, clear if I think that there's a justification for something additional.
I'm gonna ask one more question. This will be like a Jake Wood question. Will everybody be 40 hours?
Well, the finance department hours are 40. So that was another question of people because some of the other departments are less than 40. And so the employees that transfer in would be transferring in to 40 hours. They do have a right under their collective bargaining agreement to decline the increase in hours, in which case they would just stay at 35 or 37 and a half.
Will that affect the reorg, as far as the amount of work that needs to be done or how it needs to be done if they don't accept the extra 5 hours a week for certain positions?
It's kind of one of those things until we have the final list of people, we won't know. But you're right, because when we did these fiscal surveys, and I said, okay, tell me how many hours, what percent of time you're doing each task. And I boiled it down to okay, if everyone's now going to be working 40, what does that mean in total FTEs? So, but it's kind of hard, it's kind of, there's so many iterations. It's hard to kind of, but they will be offered 40 hours.
So if they're offered 40 hours, they're making 5 hours more pay? Is that how it works?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, but they're working 5 more hours too.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh,
And but where we'll see, there's some departments. So the administrative services departments are a good example. Most of them don't have a full-time fiscal person. Okay, so there's not somebody that's going to transfer right in, but maybe there's one person that'll transfer and they'll kind of absorb all that work. And so having that 5 extra hours will help us to be able to accomplish all the work. And
Gotcha.
so we think that once we have everybody over and we have a total number of hours, the total number of hours worked are going to stay the same, but that means fewer actual people, but we'll still be paying out the same number of hours. But
Should I ask the same questions tomorrow too? That'll be fine.
no. But you can, I mean, I don't even know, I'll have to see who else hasn't, I guess there's a couple people that weren't, that will be there tomorrow that.
Anybody else? Anything, Mr. Chairman? Good. Okay. Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome. We'll
Sounds
just,
like an aggressive, but sounds like a needed, looking for the
yeah,
future.
I think I think my perspective is it'll be a positive change. Some people, like I said, with change it's hard. And so they take a little bit more encouragement. So.
Thank
Okay.
you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Here for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion. Second, Sharon.
All in favor? signify by saying
Aye.
Thank you very much.
All right.
See y'all next week. Yeah.
Where are we going?
I have not heard.
Then you have to-
My mom said she's fine as long as she doesn't.
I don't know.
You won't be here next week. I will be here. Boy. You will.
Where are we going?